You're listening to the Very Refreshing Podcast with Dylan Hamar and Alek Jetzel. It's delicious. It's very refreshing.
Holy cow, Alek. We are here, episode 12.
The time is upon us.
Yeah, man. Episode 12 of the Very Refreshing Podcast. We have gone over so many things, from making a movie to our favorite sitcoms to nostalgia in the 1990s to the Marvel Cinematic Universe to fandoms to, we covered action last week. Yep. And, yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
You would have thought we ran out of things to talk about, but you were wrong.
You were wrong, dang it. Yeah. So yeah, here we are.
A lot of people are afraid for our friendship that there's going to be nothing to talk about anymore. And
yeah, I think we ran out of steam.
Yeah, our friendship is just going to fizzle now that we've talked about everything.
I think so.
It's been real, man.
It's been a while. Well, for those joining us, welcome back. Again, episode 12. My name is Dylan Hamar, and I am here with
Alek Jetzel.
Mr. Jetzel. Last week we talked about action, and the reason we talked about action is because, well, that kind of ties into the nostalgia thing. We talked about some of our favorite movies growing up. We talked about movies that maybe are from a different time period that we got into recently. We talked about modern action films, mainly because I feel like you have a really great perspective on action movies, and I don't know, you're a good ambassador for them, even to me. Like, there are times when I sniff my own farts and I'm like, hey, that's nothing, that's boring, that's tired, whatever. And you're like, no, Dylan, check this out. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I remember the first time we swapped movie recommendations, I brought over like 4 DVDs because you said like, hey, bring over a couple of your favorites and I'll pick one and we'll watch it, right? Because you'd recommended movies to me. It was time for me to do it to you,
Was it Bad Times at El Royale?
Yeah, so I fanned out these 4 movies, and like 3 of them were action movies, and you went, boop, and you pointed at the one that was like not an action movie.
But it was still different from the things I normally watch.
Yeah, totally.
And I really liked it.
Yeah.
And then, shortly after that, you showed me The Kingsman for the first time.
Yeah. So right after that, we watched an action movie. And
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was charming. It had one of like, the church scene.
Yeah.
Was insane.
Yep.
It was so good. So yeah, I mean, you have a affinity for action just like I have a love for horror films, and that brings us to our 12th and final topic, horror films. Okay. And I want to throw the question at you first.
Okay.
I know that's weird.
Okay.
But hear me out. I remember you telling me a story a long time ago about maybe some movies that your dad showed you at a young age. I want to know what that was like, and I want to know how that has stuck with you over time. So what was your introduction to, or not action, sorry, horror films?
Horror films, yeah.
What was your introduction to horror films, and how has that stuck with you over time?
So, as I mentioned in the last episode, we watched almost exclusively action movies, comedy movies. But there was one of those sessions where we stayed up late, mom went to bed or mom was out of town, and dad pulled out one of the movies that, I've said this a couple of times now, that maybe was a little bit more advanced than our age. And my first introduction to horror movies was Children of the Corn. And I totally
with
forgot
Linda Hamilton of Terminator fame. Linda Hamilton's in that movie, dude. No, it's not. It's not.
Linda Carter, right?
Linda Carter. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's why.
Why did I think Linda Hamilton?
He said Linda Hamilton, and I made a confused face, Linda Carter's in it. Yeah, of Terminator fame.
Wait, no. No, Linda Hamilton's from Terminator.
Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, isn't it?
I think so. Linda Hamilton is Sarah Connor, bro. Holy cow. It's been a day.
Yeah. We're going to get we don't have enough fans to really backlash us, but if we did, if we had like an audience, people would be so mad at us for mixing those up. Right,
you know what? It's okay to make mistakes. And if you people out there don't feel better about yourself because we also make mistakes, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. But so I forgot about this, but in our comedy episode, we talked about bench warmers, right? And there's a line in bench warmers where one of the little bully kids says, "Leave our field or you will suffer the consequences." And David Spade goes, "What is this, Children of the Corn?"
And the kid is like, he's like stuttering.
Yeah.
He's like blinking really fast. He's like,
yeah.
"You will suffer the consequences." Yeah.
So my dad heard us quoting that one day, and he said, "Have you guys seen Children of the Corn? Why are you quoting Children of the Corn?" And we're like, "No." And he's like, "I know what we're watching next time." So Dad went out and found Children of the Corn on DVD, and that was like the first horror movie I'd ever watched, right? And I was already 11 at the time, right? Really didn't watch anything before that as far as horror, you know? I didn't even want to watch Goosebumps when it was on TV. I was leaving the room on that. But yeah, Children of the Corn, love that movie. That's got that, you know, don't have a lot of exposure to horror growing up. And I know that there's problems with that movie, but I love it so much. It's so good, right?
Yeah, I think no, I don't disagree.
Fetch Isaac.
I think for
Fetch
me,
Malachi.
for me personally, I don't know, hot take, probably not as hot of a take. I don't know if there's ever been an excellent Children of the Corn movie. There's a lot of them. There's like Children of the Corn Genesis. There's like all these movies, and I've seen like all of them. However, I think the first 2 acts of that first movie,
Yeah.
when the kids are the threat, is like where I'm on board. When He Who Walks Behind the Rose comes out, they completely lose
When it turns
me.
into a monster movie, it loses it.
And
right?
I know that's the plot.
Yeah.
However, to me,
Well, that's the joke, right? Stephen King doesn't know how to end his movies. Or
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to end his books. Right?
yeah, it's like the first 2 acts where the kids are, you know, under this like religious leadership, and they kill all the adults in the town, all their parents, and they're sort of just running amok.
Dude,
It's like the Jimmy Neutron movie.
the scariest part of that movie, too, if we're talking about being a kid and watching horror movies, was when Linda Hamilton and her boyfriend are driving
It's not
down-
Linda Hamilton.
What is it?
No, hold on, keep talking. No, it's not.
When Sarah Connor and her boyfriend are driving down the highway, and they're in like a little bit of a tiff, and they're like arguing at each other, and then they both look at the road, and the little boy who has been like tortured by the Children of the Corn just shows up in the middle of the road, and they plow right over him. And there's like this really scary sound
It is
effect.
Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton.
Okay, just want to state the facts. I was right originally,
You were right.
but you know what? Alec gaslit me. And I questioned myself, and it led me to the point where I was like, wait, was that Linda Hamilton? It was freaking Linda Hamilton.
Why did I think it was Linda Carter? Like, clearly Wonder Woman. Anyway, yeah, that was the scariest part of the movie to me, was when that kid that's like all bloodied and beaten shows up and they just destroy him with their car. That part was making me...
He gets like tossed out into the road, right?
Dude, that part had me feeling away when I try to go to bed that night.
Yeah, and there's like there are parts that I saw as a kid that like really wrecked me, and as an adult, I'm kind of like, it's kind of funny, like Outlander, like that. is that Malachi?
Yeah,
Because Isaac is
the leader.
Malachi's is like henchman.
Is the tall, ugly, redheaded kid.
Yeah,
Poor kid.
I know.
He
What
was built
happened?
to be a horror villain just by his face.
Yeah, Outlander.
But thank goodness for him. Malachi's cool.
Yeah, Malachi's like, I don't know, he's got like Andy Milonakis syndrome or something. He's like, that kid looked 40 in that movie.
Yeah. And he was like tall and lanky.
There's no way that's a kid, right? Like, is it?
I don't know.
I don't know that.
And it was made in the
actor.
70s, so he had this low.
It was made in 80s.
in
It was like
80
84.
Okay, well, he had this like long hair that made him look like he could have been playing keys for Styx or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
America's Greatest Rock Band.
And he only got a bad rap because most critics are cynical assholes.
But I digress. That was my really only exposure to horror as a kid. Let me turn
Did
the
your
table.
dad show you Poltergeist 2?
No, he told me that story.
Okay, I
Later
guess I
on.
got a little confused. But was Children of the Corn, I know it was your introduction. And by the way, guys, excuse my lack of knowledge on the actors and things in Children of the Corn. I'm actually, Alec knows this, I'm not a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
Some of the movie adaptations of his books I do like. Funny enough, the ones that aren't horror I like the most. But I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Stephen King movies. Like, I just haven't been. So But Children of the Corn, I think, had a great premise. Alec and I talked forever about how that movie needed a remake. They did remake it, and it's terrible.
So, if you're listening, Hollywood, and we know you are, me and Dylan are the guys to give it a real remake.
Honestly, I would scrap the He Who Walks Behind the Rose completely, and I would give a really good cult horror movie.
Yeah, we would rewrite the ending of it. So,
and by the way, as a kid, I didn't know it was Rose, like Rows.
You thought it was the flower?
I thought it was the flower rose. And it makes sense because it's corn rose.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they say rose. And I know that's how you say the other rose, but it always just sounded like the flower. Like,
yeah, it
he
sounded
who
like that
walks
to me.
behind the rose.
Yeah,
you know?
It sounded like that to me too.
Yeah, so I always thought it was the flower. I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. What was your question?
Oh, yeah, I want to flip it back on you, right? I had the most rudimentary of horror introductions with one movie. I didn't watch another horror movie until I was an adult, right? 18, 19. Maybe I did, but I don't remember any of them. What is your introduction to horror? Can you remember the first horror movie you ever watched?
I can two movies distinctly.
Okay, I want to hear about them. Was it the same thing like your mom or dad showed them to you?
My mom and dad were horror fanatics.
Okay, cool.
And my dad had a, like, I don't know, it was like every Halloween, my dad would watch John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. And I think when I turned like 3 or 4, it was finally like, okay, I can share this with my son.
3 or 4.
And I was like, dude, I think it had a lot to do with my dad's love for it. Because the ones you look up to, you know, when they are super invested in something, you just think it's the greatest thing. So my mom and dad showed me separate movies. My dad showed me Halloween 1978, and dude, wow. Like I'm speechless when it comes to
this
that.
day. It's still your favorite movie.
It's my favorite movie of all time. Yeah. And my mom showed me a movie that is not as popular amongst horror fans, but I actually really, really love it. I don't like this franchise, believe it or not, but my mom showed me Child's Play 3.
Interesting.
And I thought it was really cool. It takes place at like a military camp, but almost like a military school for bad kids.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, Chucky comes in and, you know, just wreaks havoc on it and just starts killing people. He takes like
what year did the first Chucky movie come out?
The Child's Play, I think, came out in, I think it might have been like 86 or 87 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Child's Play 2 is actually the one that's considered the GOAT.
Okay.
And I think they're fine. It's just like, it's Freddy Krueger syndrome to me. It gets too corny, and I do like camp. I don't like movies or franchises that become camp. I like movies that are camp from the get-go. If you establish yourself as camp, I'm on board. But if your scary character eventually starts like becoming this quippy comedian,
okay. Sorry. When you say camp, you mean campiness.
Yeah.
The way you said camp made me think of, so you're a big Friday the 13th fan.
I am not.
Because it happened. I thought you meant...
It literally happens at a camp.
That's what I thought you meant. You're like, dude, if it happens at a camp, I'm in. That's what I thought you were saying. You mean campiness, right? So
yeah.
If a character or a franchise start off campy, they have full reign to be there.
Yeah, like when you throw Evil Dead at me, I'm in. Yeah. But when it comes down to like Friday the 13th is a great example. The first movie had Pamela Voorhees, Jason's mom. Mm-hmm. Pretty great movie. A little long, but it's okay. The second one, Jason miraculously shows up, and wouldn't you know, they made a carbon copy of Michael Myers. It's just like
yeah.
And they get ridiculous. And I know people love that, but it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, he goes to space at some point.
Jason X, he goes to space. Jason goes to hell. He's not even in the movie. He's this little like creature that infiltrates people and takes over their bodies. Like, yeah. I mean, props for trying. That's that. And let me just say this, like, I'm not on my Halloween high horse being like, it copied Halloween. Halloween has had very few good entries as well. Mm. Halloween.
How many total Halloween movies are there?
So you have Halloween 1 through 6.
Okay.
Okay. 3 does not follow the Michael Myers lore.
Yeah.
3 is Season of the Witch. So you have Halloween, Halloween 2, and then Halloween 4 is the Return of Michael Myers. And then Halloween 5 is Revenge of Michael Myers. And then Halloween 6 is Curse of Michael Myers, commonly referred to as the Pink Panther trilogy, because that's what the Pink Panther movies were called as well. Return of the Pink Panther, Revenge of the Pink Panther, Curse of the Pink Panther. So the Halloween, it's called the Thorn trilogy.
Yep.
Because it implements the cults and stuff, commonly referred to by some fans as the Pink Panther trilogy. But you had that. And then you had Halloween H2O, which came out in 1998. And then you had Halloween Resurrection. So at this point, we're at 8.
8 movies.
But then Rob Zombie brought it back with Halloween.
Yep.
And then he did Halloween 2. So now we're at 10. And then David Gordon Green brought it back again with Halloween 2018. And then Halloween Kills. And then Halloween Ends. So 13
movies.
Halloween movies.
And of those entries, of the 13,
how many are good?
how many would you, in your opinion, would you say are good?
I like 1. I like 3. People are going to get mad at me for not being a huge fan of 2. But 3 is so good. It's so good. They were going to do this anthology thing with it. And I promise this isn't the Halloween podcast. We'll get past this. But they were going to do an anthology thing with Halloween 3 and moving forward where they told different stories. And people were like, where's Michael Myers? It's like he died in the second one.
Yeah.
But he magically reappears in Halloween 4 because fans were upset.
Yep.
And now Halloween 3 has a cult following because people realized how good it was.
Yeah. It defied expectations, so people were upset, but then in retrospect, they're like, oh, it was pretty sick.
Yeah, and I think it was directed by Tommy Wallace, who was like a set designer on the first Halloween movie.
Oh, that's cool.
So he went on to direct his own Halloween movie. And so I think Halloween 1, 3 are great. I do like Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. That's a good one. 5 and 6 are awful. Like, I have a soft spot for Halloween H2O just because, I don't know, it came out, I was 7, and it was like so cool to like see a Halloween movie in my generation happen.
Yeah.
And it was cool because they like retconned the whole series. So it's like when Halloween H2O came out, only Halloween 1, 2, and H2O were canon.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then David Gordon Green's 2018 I really loved. Halloween Kills I liked. Halloween Ends, can't stand it.
So that's an interesting thing because I feel like horror started this trend, and Dylan threw a couple of jargon words around, retconned and, legacies and canon, right? So for anyone who doesn't know, at certain points, sometimes franchises will retcon, right? Which means erase retrospectively, right? So in the case of Halloween, when H2O came out, they said, okay, only 1 and 2 actually happened. The rest
4, 5, and 6 never happened.
Yeah, they pretend like they never happened and then pick the story back up from there, which is what Halloween 2018 did.
And it meanwhile was a legacy sequel, right? Where it came out 40 years after the original. But in Halloween 2018, everything was retconned after the first movie.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 and on never happened.
Yeah.
And Halloween 1978 happened, and then Halloween 2018 happened, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And it was really cool how they retconned it.
Did I said this kind of just in a general way, did horror kind of pioneer that idea?
Retconning?
Yeah. Because there are other like genres that have done that, because like we talked about, they've got 19 movies and only 2 of them are good, right? Did horror kind of pioneer doing that?
Yeah, and I think it's because of awful sequels.
Yeah.
It's someone trying to pay respect, and they're like, this never happened, so I can do my story and do it justice.
Yeah.
However, even most times that falls into the terrible sequel territory.
Yeah.
Candyman recently did it as well. Not as blatantly, but the new Candyman movie was a legacy sequel and really focused on that first movie primarily.
Yeah.
So, and it does happen. It happens all the time. The new Hellraiser movie is a legacy sequel, sort of retconning. And then also, I think the new Exorcist movie might be doing that, which, by the way, real quick, I watched the trailer today.
For the new Exorcist movie.
Because for those that don't know, David Gordon Green, the director of the new Halloween movies, did the new Exorcist movie that's yet to come out. And he sort of pooped the bed on Halloween. Like he really lost steam. Mm. So people were like, "Oh my gosh, he's doing the Exorcist."
Yeah, because Halloween 2018 was awesome.
Incredible.
Halloween Kills
Fun.
was
super fun.
Fun, but all right.
A little problematic.
Halloween Ends was awful.
I almost cried leaving the theater
because it had let you down so
It
hard.
hurt me so bad. Like, I know that sounds stupid, but it's like when your favorite horror film is getting like releases and you believe in the team doing it and they just swing for the fences and just, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but by the way,
so David Gordon Green is doing The Exorcist.
It looks awesome. It looks awesome. I'm so excited.
He's about to restore your faith. You're so mad at him for Halloween Ends, but now he's about to bring you back.
Yeah. I didn't write him a letter, I promise.
You weren't one of those guys?
Yeah, no.
Dear David Gordon Green.
Dear David Gordon Green, a.k.a. the man who broke my heart. So, sorry. I feel like I just went on a huge tangent.
I mean, we did a Rocky tangent last episode, and it was awesome.
But so. I do love Halloween. I do love horror. I'm like, for I think I might have mentioned this in our collection episode, but I have over like 1,000 physical movies, and I'd say probably like 90% of them are horror.
Yeah,
and I mean like horror dating back to like the 20s. Like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and like weird stuff like that, like German expressionism, weird horror. Like I just love it all. It's just, I don't know. And it goes into my taste with music too. I really love dark stuff. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think that love of the darkness, the way that you love,
I believe in a thing called love. Just listen to the rhythm of my heart. Are you talking about that darkness?
No. Just like you love media that, music and movies that are a little bit darker. Do you think that is just born from your nostalgia of having those moments with your parents, or do you think that there's something else going on?
Yeah, I think it's two
Dylan,
things.
Take a lean back on the couch there and let me psychiatry you a little bit.
Psychiatry.
Yeah.
Let me shrink you.
Yeah, where's that coming from? What do you think?
So I think it's two things. I think it's obviously, the things you're introduced to as a kid do stick with you. But also, I'm not a professional. I think those that experience intense trauma in their life are more prone to be interested in the dark, because it's like, I don't know. I
have a theory. I
think that people that have hardship in their life to like a degree that like is, really hard and or not. Hardship is hard, but
yeah.
No, like. By
the way, I apologize for saying I have a theory. As soon as I said it, I hated myself.
I have a theory.
I wonder if it's what I wonder is like you said, you've been through some hard things, right? And you're drawn to this darkness. And I wonder if it's because, hey, at least I'm not getting stabbed in the face by Michael Myers. You know what I mean? Like
I dream about that.
It's almost like a way of you. It's almost like a cathartic way of you, like, getting over your own things, because at least it's not that dark and that bloody and that nasty. Do you think maybe that's it?
Not consciously. It isn't.
Sure.
I don't know. My subconscious might have some weird stuff to do with that. But I don't know. I just love fear and safety in the same sentence.
Yeah, because as dark and as wild as horror might be, it's fiction. It's not real.
It's safe.
It's make-believe.
Yeah, like nothing bad's going to happen to you. And
you can be scared for an hour and a half and then go, oh, shoot, I'm safe in my home on my couch and when I go to bed. You really are, And that's fun.
Let's be clear. This trait isn't everyone. It's the reason you slow down when there's a car accident.
Yeah.
You're interested in things that are kind of gruesome. You slow down for a car accident and you're saying out loud to your friends, I hope everyone's okay, but you're also hoping to catch a glimpse of someone on a stretcher. Like, I'm just saying. Whew. Sorry. Like not hoping that someone's hurt necessarily, but you're hoping you get to see something interesting.
Yeah, something that is so out of the ordinary for your daily life.
Like, you clearly don't wish death or harm on anyone, but you're like, because
of the juxtaposition of how safe you are.
Yeah. You're driving by and, you see a crash and you're like, oh man, oh no. But you're driving by and you're like manipulating your neck and looking around just to see if you can catch a glimpse of something.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people wouldn't admit that, but it's true.
Yeah. A really gnarled car. You're like, the gnarlier the car looks, the more kind of excited I am about it.
It's the reason that most of our news programming focuses on dark content. It's the reason that true crime and true crime has seen such a height on YouTube and things like that. So, you could start a true crime channel and you could get 3 million subs in a year. It's more common than people think it is.
It's like, wow, the world is crazy, but I'm safe.
Well, yeah, and it's also just fascinating. It's fascinating. Like
we talked about this in the last episode, the way that action kind of awakens this like masculine primal nature in me. Horror kind of does that to us too. It just like has this, it just tickles that fascination in us in a certain way because of how out of the ordinary it is.
Like going back to Halloween, okay? So there's not a lot of kills in that original movie. There's like no blood.
Yeah.
There's no real violence. That's like, when I was a kid, the scene that got me the worst was when Dr. Loomis and Nurse Nancy go to the Smith's Grove. And they see all the escaped mental patients, and they're slowly in their gowns walking in the woods, and the lightning is flashing, and it's showing these like confused people wandering in the rain.
Yeah.
Something about that really scared me.
It's unsettling.
But you also again set the gruesome nature of a serial killer going out on Halloween and stalking babysitters. Set that to the side. Why? And they never. In that first movie, they never answer that question. The only thing Dr. Loomis says is he has the devil's eyes.
Yeah.
You don't know what's fueling this man.
Yeah. You
don't see his face. He stalks, in the shadows. He's literally called the Shape. He is hiding. He's in hiding. There's something.
It's the mystery that makes him so.
He never speaks. He doesn't speak. Even when he kills his sister Judith in the beginning of the movie, he never speaks. And Rob Zombie made him speak, which is...
It's a misunderstanding.
Excuse me. But I don't know. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating with that. It's kind of like Wes Craven. Wes Craven, was famously fascinated with these stories about this kid who was afraid to go to sleep because he was going to die if he fell asleep. And he really did. Right? This kid passed away in his sleep, and then Wes Craven made Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
Yeah.
So you take something as important and peaceful as sleeping, and you just throw it on its face, and you make people afraid of it. It's it's fascinating,
That's interesting.
So it's, I don't know. It's very common though.
That
a lot of your wife, dude.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry to use this term.
Your wife.
Your very nice religious wife. She digs it, man.
Oh yeah,
she digs horror.
Yeah, I come home from the gym and she's like, "Hey, did you know that this guy killed 8 people?" And I'm like, "What are you watching?" She's watching a true crime documentary.
Yeah, it's weird.
A documentary about a cult or a religion. It's always something really unsettling.
We all three actually hang out, and Carrie will be like, "Have you seen Abducted in Plain Sight or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have." And then we'll talk about it, and it's awesome. And then Alek is like, "I don't know you."
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is really interesting. And also, I mentioned, right, Children of the Corn, and then I think I watched Signs maybe in my teen years, which is not a horror movie, but it's got elements of it, right? It's but I didn't watch another horror movie until me and Carrie had started dating. Right?
What movie was it?
She was really into horror movies. She watched them with her.
It or something?
No, it wasn't it. It was The Conjuring 2.
Great movie.
It was cool.
Yeah, the first 2 Conjuring movies are stellar.
Yeah, and it was cool. And I was definitely a big weenie, and I still kind of am. Where I was I was legit when I felt that the scare was coming, I would put my hand over my eyes and kind of look down at the floor because I had no tolerance for it, But it was a sweet movie. I think what's one of the other ones we watched? We watched that Jessica Alba one where she
The Eye?
Yeah, where she gets her eyes replaced.
Which is a US remake. I think it
Yeah.
was originally like a Korean movie.
That one wasn't so good. It wasn't Conjuring, you know. And I could always do in the Conjuring 2, there's this like spirit, and he's this old British guy, and I would do the voice and it would really creep Carrie out. He would go, "My name is Bill Wilkins. I'm 75 years up." I remember that very fondly. But then Carrie went and saw a movie that I didn't want to go see it, and it turned her off, and she swore off horror for a minute, you know.
And here we are.
And then we got reintroduced when me and Dylan become best buds.
Yeah. When I first met you, you were like, horror's just not really my thing, and I feel like you genuinely like it now.
I do.
I
do. Yeah.
And I show him some of the classics, but I also show him some of like the more, the conscious horror, the elevated horror that it's famously called.
The more modern
I'll show,
stuff.
I like Ari Aster movies, or, we'll watch Robert Eggers stuff or whatever. But, I showed you The Faculty recently, which is a 90s.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, super great movie. Yeah, super great movie. I love that 90s era too. So
I just want to know more about some of the horror movies that you liked growing up. So we've obviously talked about Halloween. We've talked about Child's Play 3. We've mentioned some of the other ones. What are some of the other horror movies you remember really latching onto as a kid?
Yeah. I'll just throw out my top 5.
Sure.
Easy.
Love it.
So Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people will argue this next one with me, but it is a horror film. Psycho. Okay. The
Awesome.
Thing, The Fog, and Rosemary's Baby.
Okay, The Thing, the John Carpenter one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the John Carpenter remake.
Yeah, because the original is The Thing from Outer Space. Is that what it's called?
The Thing from Another World.
The Thing from Another World. So, and that one has Kurt Russell in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we haven't
the
watched that.
1982 remake.
Yeah. I've seen pieces of that one. We haven't watched that one all together. Okay, The Thing, Psycho, The Fog.
The Fog is a John Carpenter film from 1980.
1980, and
it was his follow up to Halloween.
Okay, and Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, and the reason I got into Rosemary's Baby was actually, this is really funny, but it was my mom's favorite horror movie. Mm-hmm. She would always tell me there's something you hear growing up, right? And it's baffling to me, but I get it because of its era. The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever made. Like, you hear that everywhere. Yeah. Like, look, do me a favor, listener. Go look up the scariest movies ever made. I guarantee you The Exorcist is in the top 3, if not number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. But my mom would tell me, Dylan, Rosemary's Baby is the scariest movie ever made. And to this day, I'm sort of inclined to agree. And it's not because of the subject matter. It's because of those weird fever dreams that Mia Farrow has in those movies. It's like, or in the movie, it's like very unsettling, and it's a cult movie. You're dealing with a religious cult. Yeah. Did I show it to you?
No, we haven't watched that one yet.
I watched it with my roommate recently and his girlfriend, and stellar. And we watched The Thing.
Has that one been, so I'm sure a lot of people know horror movies are very prone to remakes and reboots and all this kind of stuff, right? Has Rosemary's Baby been remade?
It's been redone as a series.
Oh, as a
it
TV
had a show.
Okay.
It had a show.
Any good? Did you watch it?
It was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. I did watch it. The Fog got a remake. Mm-hmm. The Thing got... The Thing itself was a remake. However, it got more of a legacy prequel.
Okay.
Because the remake that people like to call it, it's actually a prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that like Russian base they go to in the first movie, that's where it takes place.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and then Psycho got remade with Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates.
Yeah. Everything we've talked about this. There's definitely sequelitis, remake-itis, and horror is, as we mentioned, it's kind of like the pioneer of getting remakes and reboots and stuff.
Well, profits, it's a scalable thing, right? Like, take this into account. If you made a Marvel movie for $210 million and you take $1 billion, you're obviously looking at a huge profit margin. Mm-hmm. But in the same vein, if you make a $10 million horror movie and it makes 70, you're making a huge profit.
Yeah. It's almost like the percentages are the same.
Yeah, they're not looking at, Guardians 3 and being like, man, if only our movie could do that. No.
Yeah.
They're happy and they keep making them because horror films are super profitable.
Yeah.
In the same way action movies are. Some people go to horror on the weekends, get their popcorn and get spooked. And that's it. And it's super fun, but obviously we have this like elevated concept happening with like A24 films, and
yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
It is fun. That's cool. So those are your top 5.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this, but horror is like very prone to franchises too. They get a ton of things, right? And there's iconic ones too. There's iconic horror villains. So let me just rattle off a couple of them to you, right?
Is this our first podcast game?
No, not a game. Rapid fire. No. I just want I'm interested. I kind of know the answers already, but I'm sure our listeners would be interested to hear your opinions on some of these icons, right?
I'm not a horror contrarian, and I'm not up my own butt before we get started.
Sure.
I just have a very particular taste.
Yep.
However, go ahead. I know where this is going.
Yep. So we've already mentioned Friday the 13th. How do you feel about that one?
I think in Friday the 13th Part 3, when Jason ditched his potato sack that was on his head and he got the hockey mask. Iconic.
Yep.
It's super cool. I actually really like the third movie.
Okay.
I like the first 4 just fine, but 3 nostalgia.
3 nostalgia.
That's where he got the famous hockey mask. The movies themselves, not great. I think he was it was a Halloween copy, especially with that second one. The first one was cool
because of the twist and everything.
Yeah, the twist would have been better had they introduced Pamela earlier in the movie.
Sure.
You don't meet her until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, who's this lady? Oh, it's a sweet old. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is a good movie. I really like the third one, even though it breaks my campy rule just a little bit. Dream Warriors is great. Can't stand the rest of them.
Yeah.
I think Freddy Krueger stopped being scary, man. The first one, he was vicious. And even the second one, which is a really bad movie, pretty vicious. However, I do like the third one. Dream Warriors is awesome. It's like one of my roommate and I love that movie and we watch it pretty regularly. But I don't know, man. He got corny.
Yeah.
He got super corny. I'm not a big fan.
At a certain point, he was like, "I'm gonna get you."
Well, yeah. He would start making quips, and it was just like it was.
You're like, "Hey, why is this nightmare demon trying to be a stand-up comic at the same time?"
Yeah, it's like the same jokes as like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie.
Yeah.
Have a trip, nice trip. See you next fall. Like that kind of stuff. That's like what elevator going up, elevator going down, like that kind of stuff. That's like what Freddy Krueger is.
Yeah.
Iconic. That first movie from Wes Craven was really, really, I don't know, just inventive. It was great. It famously, it saved New Line Cinema.
Okay.
Which
I
is,
didn't know that.
It was commonly referred to as the studio that Freddy built because they were about to go bankrupt, and Nightmare on Elm Street saved the company.
And since then, that studio
you would not have some of your favorite Jim Carrey movies without Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So you got to give it props, and obviously, it's not like his debut necessarily, but it did kickstart Johnny Depp. Like most horror franchises, those first movies have. Leprechaun has Jennifer Aniston. Halloween has Jamie Lee Curtis. Friday the 13th has Kevin Bacon. Like they just all have.
Okay, I have 2 more for you. One of them, I can't remember what you think, and the other one is a little bit different. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Dang, this is gonna get me in trouble.
That's why I wanted you to talk about it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's hear it.
The Tobe Hooper original. Hate it.
Okay, what year did that come out? Do you know off the top of your head? Was it the 70s?
I think 76.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe it was 76. I'll spot check that. But either way,
Don't love the original.
I hate it.
You hate it.
1974. I was 2 years off.
Okay. Shame on you.
It was like, it was an exploitation movie. Tobe Hooper did a couple of those. But I love the second one.
Okay.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is so funny. Dennis Hopper is hilarious in that movie. I'm going to show it to you sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's this part. Sorry.
So wait, they went full campy on the second one.
I'm breaking the rules again. It's super campy. It's super silly. And it makes me laugh like so. There's this part where Dennis Hopper shows up to like the compound where the family lives, and he has like 2 chainsaws. And he starts trying to get into their compound, and he's chainsawing a wall, and all this blood starts pouring off. And he looks like kind of at the camera, and he goes, "It's the devil's playground." And my ex-girlfriend hated me because when I showed her that movie, I had to pause, and I laughed for like 25 minutes,
Dang.
However, I also do love the 2003 remake too.
Okay.
With Jessica Biel.
Okay.
Such a good movie, dude. And even the beginning was pretty good, the one that came after that. But the original, the iconic one, I'm good. I think it's ugly.
Yeah.
It's like I can't, I'm sorry. It's like people are like, Dylan, it came out in 74. Okay.
A lot of things came out in 74 and they looked better.
A lot of movies came out in 64 and looked better, dude. Which, like, I know that's the charm of it. It's a low
gritty,
budget. It's a low budget, and it's supposed to be like a mockumentary type thing where you watch it and you're like, oh, this could have happened, because that was like the famous thing growing up, is like based on a true story. No, it isn't.
Okay, here's another one, and I know that you have good things to say about this one, so it's
thank you.
Up. I want to hear about Scream.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the most consistent horror franchise in history.
Because Scream they just came out with 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 6th one just dropped this year. And yeah, you've told me this. There's not a bad entry in it.
Yeah, like Scream fans will tell you that 2 and 3 are bad, but if those are your worst entries, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Scream has legitimately never had a bad movie.
Yeah.
And I know there are people out there that will pick apart the new cast. They're like, Janet Ortega, enough is enough, But, dude, they're all so good. And every time a new one comes out, my roommate and I are like terrified when we go to the theater.
Yeah, you're like, this is the one where they finally dropped the ball.
They're gonna jump the shark and crap the bed, and I'm like, here we go. And then it works out just fine, because Wes Craven, his last one was the 4th one, which
is one of the strongest ones.
Very good. Very good. That's when they returned to Woodsboro, and the team that did Ready or Not is the team that did 5 and 6, and they're doing such a great job, man. How far along are you?
I've only watched up till 4.
Okay.
And yeah, I agree. 2 and 3 were a ton of fun. 4 was other level. That was a good one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the way this is going to go is, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Scream. I like they're obviously talking about a 7th entry now, which I think is
problematic.
I think 6 was a beautiful send-off. I think we should leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like, I like to exist in a world where
things are wrapped up nicely.
It never happens.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But the way this episode is probably going to happen is, at least so far, is I'm just going to gush.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what I want, because as the horror novice, I want to hear more about it. So.
Because I have some stuff to get out of you at the same time.
Okay.
So
yeah, let's switch it, and
yes.
then I have another like almost rapid fire game I want to play with.
Okay, I want to throw a question at you first. So, modern Alek, not modern horror, modern Alek has really given horror a chance. What has that been like? And what have been some of your favorite horror films you've watched, either with me or with Carrie or whatever? How's that been going? Like, you're new, and like you have this beautiful world ahead of you.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I have so many options here.
Yeah. Well, so I think, like, giving horror a chance really came from I have this new friend named Dylan, and I want to be what I know. You know, we've talked about how we met in that those first few months where we were becoming friends. It was like I really want to be friends with Dylan because I enjoy what's going on so far. So I want to open myself up to this new world so that we can have even more in common than we already do, you know? Like I want, you know, I want us to become closer together, and we do that through horror, right?
Oh,
We're like brothers, only closer. You know, I want to be able to relate to you on that, and I want us to be able to kind of have that also. So like you said, you've introduced me to a lot of classics that I didn't see growing up that I could have. You've introduced me to some new ones that have come out within the last decade or so that have been really cool. It's and you know, when I watched The Conjuring 2 with Carrie in 2016 or 17, I was covering my eyes and I had zero tolerance, and now I'm at the point where I can handle them a lot better than I used to. You know, I'm not, there's still moments where I cover my eyes because I know that jump scare is coming or something, right? But there's also like a lot of having, you know, made a couple of horror and suspense short films with you, there's a lot to be learned about filmmaking from them. And I kind of view them that way too. You know, it's like, what can I learn about, you know, especially, you know, jumping into the role of being like a writer and trying to write my own screenplays and stuff like that. What can I learn about building tension from these movies? What can I learn about building conflict, right? What is it? Because if the horror movie is only the best horror movies that I've seen and that you've shown me is not just the main hero versus the monster, right? It's the main hero versus other people, their own selves. They have some kind of conflict going on that mirrors the conflict that they're having with the monster or with the bad guy, right? And so it's definitely like a cool learning experience of how to build tension between characters and not just tension between the monster, right? So it's been a really cool learning experience, and that's how I've kind of used it to help myself. And you know, besides that, there's just really cool ideas and really cool concepts. There's a ton of originality coming from the horror genre. You know, we dump on it for being so prone to sequelitis and remake-itis and all this stuff and having 19 sequels, but there's still so much originality coming out of that genre.
yeah, it's like the movies that are stale are the ones that are sticking with a franchise that is old.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of filmmakers that are doing new original stuff, right? Like,
Totally.
I mean, new movies. You know, there are movies that I've shown Alek that I would not have ever guessed or dreamed of showing him like 2 years ago. Because without getting too much into it, I very much respect your faith.
Yeah.
Like I do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you talked earlier about how you wanted to like be a good friend and get to know me. I was like bombarding you with questions about your faith when I first met you because I wanted to know all about it and be educated on something that means a lot to you.
Yeah.
And there have been times where even we're going to make a movie and you're like, I really want to do this. And I'm like, go talk to your dad first.
Yeah.
You're like, seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we need to like respect like something that means a lot to you and not get it too far out of the box. I think you've made your decisions and you've struck a healthy relationship, you know, but I've shown you movies that I would have never assumed I would have ever shown you. Dude, I remember when I first met you, or around the time I met you, you know, even though he's only 3 movies deep, I'm a huge fan of Ari Aster movies. And I was like, I will never show you Midsummer.
Yeah.
Or as he calls it, Midsommar.
Midsommar.
I'm like, there's no way I will ever show this guy that movie because it very much deals with a negative take on faith. And I don't know, it's like, it is a cult, but at the same time, to them, it is a religion.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll get there, but I've also shown you've seen Barbarian. Dude, you watched X recently.
Yeah.
A Ty West movie.
Yeah.
And while there were things about that movie that definitely took a bit too far.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot you still appreciated about it.
Yeah.
But I've also shown you movies like The Burbs and things like that, you know, some of my favorite movies. But you've watched movies that, like, I'm kind of surprised that you've made your way to.
Yeah. Even myself, I wouldn't have expected to watch those movies a few years ago. And not even because of like my faith, even though that is very like integrally tied to it, more just for like my taste, you know? And my taste has evolved, you know, and with that have come, you know, a tolerance that I've built up to watch some of these movies, you know.
Like the most excited I've ever seen you after a horror movie, believe it or not, I don't know if you remember this, it was Barbarian.
Barbarian was sick.
There were moments because that movie does this cool thing where it'll ramp up the tension to as high as it'll go, and then it'll introduce a new character.
Yeah.
And Alek kept looking at me, and he was like, dude, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, sick.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a great movie.
Yeah.
And it's getting a sequel, by the way.
Oh, sweet. And yeah, and I watched that movie, and I was like, oh, man, how do, you know, like I said, a learning deal.
You were blown away by the first act with Skarsgård.
Yep.
That was like, you were like, if it was just this, I would be happy.
Yeah.
But it obviously wasn't.
It was way more, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I remember that. I had like my mouth agape. Like I was just like I was like, what? Right? And I was looking at you, I was like, what's gonna happen, you know?
Like the scene where they start exploring like the caverns.
Yeah.
You were like, what is going on here?
I know.
And that was cool.
It was really cool, right? Because it's, you know, we talked about this with the action. It's like, how is this filmmaker going to show me something I haven't been shown before? You know, like how is this filmmaker going to make a car chase fresh and new, right? Same with horror. Like how is this director, how is this writer, how is this actor going to give us a fresh new take on something that may have been done before, but they're going to present it in a way that I've never experienced. It's a lot of fun.
What are some of your favorite horror movies, Alek?
Some of my favorite horror movies, Children of the Corn holds a special place. The original Halloween is really freaking good.
Really?
I love it. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Yeah, and it's it has a lot to do with the character of Michael Myers, right? The fact that he
wasn't spoiled yet. He was just almost like they didn't want to give him too much of a lineage and reason. Yeah. It was just simple.
Yeah, and he's you know, and then you like watch a YouTube video about the making of it, and you find out that the guy who played Michael Myers was a like he was from the ballet, and he moved a certain way to help build the character. It's so cool, you know. I love the original Halloween. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Psycho is incredible. It's a classic of the genre. You know what? I don't think I've told you this. Do you know what I think my favorite, at least modern horror that you've shown me? Right?
Modern as in the past decade?
Yeah, I guess we're still technically within the last decade.
It wasn't The Descent.
No.
That was way more than a decade ago.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Okay.
My favorite modern horror movie actually came out a decade ago this year. The Evil Dead remake.
Ooh. Yeah, I showed you that one too, right?
Dude.
Yeah.
I talked earlier about like, it's not just the character versus the monster. It's the character versus other characters and the monster. That's the perfect example.
That's
right?
that's like a best case scenario with a remake. And to any horror fans listening, like to be such a newcomer and say something like that, everyone's going to be like, sick, dude.
Yeah. And you showed me we watched Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
right?
It was because it was semi early on in our friendship, and I'm like, I want to show him the funny one.
Yeah.
And obviously Army of Darkness takes that same approach. The original Evil Dead, the first one, is a little more on the horror side.
Yeah.
Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, is so slapsticky and fun.
It's so fun. And then you said, hey, what do you think about trying the remake? And that one was I really liked that one a lot. And you said like you said, Barbarian made me experience something that I hadn't really. I was like, I really have no idea what's about to happen, right? Those two probably hold a pretty good spot, right? Barbarian because it kept me on my toes. Evil Dead because of the character interactions and the conflict. It was so like layered and interesting to me.
It's such a great plot,
and
too.
the horror elements of it, right? With the monsters and the kills and the
I know, it's like everyone becomes a deadite. They become possessed,
Yeah.
you know, and that's...
yeah. And okay, so Barbarian, Evil Dead, and I can't say anything about modern horror without talking about Jordan Peele's movies.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I love
Nope. Or Get Out.
I love Get Out. Me and
Yeah.
Carrie, that was actually one me and Carrie watched when we were still in college.
It's incredible.
Because it was culturally significant. Everyone's like, you have to. So we tried it out. It was awesome. I have yet to see Us, so I definitely need to see
Us
that
is
one.
good. When again, I'm gonna say the same thing about that I said about Scream. When Us is like saying that's Jordan Peele's worst movie, you're fine.
Yeah.
It's
Totally
a good
fine.
one. It's a good one.
I do think Nope is my favorite of the three.
Okay, yeah,
right?
that's fine.
And I think because it speaks to some of the other sensibilities I have, you know, my taste in other genres, you know. It's yeah, I think that's one of that movie is so original and it defies expectations. And you know, by the time you get to the end, you're like, I didn't think it was going to go this way, and it's so fun,
Bro, so Jordan Peele famously talked about how he wanted to create a movie that focused on the phobia of looking up into the sky.
Yeah,
There is a phobia with that. Like the feeling that certain people got when they saw that spacecraft or, you know, creature rather move out of the clouds and between the clouds, it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
The part that got me, and I won't go too deep into spoilers because it is still kind of newish. The part where it's flying around and you hear all the people in it.
Yeah,
That was weird.
it was wild.
It was cool.
Yeah,
I love Jordan Peele.
and both that one and the Evil Dead remake did the Blood Rain, and the Blood Rain was so sick.
Oh yeah, dude. I know a girl who actually has the she has the tattoo of you know the end of the Evil Dead when, you know, she's taking on the deadite version of herself.
Mhm.
And she goes, "I'll swallow your soul." And she goes, "Swallow this." And she shoves a chainsaw into her face.
Yeah.
I know a girl that has that tattooed on her.
Oh, that's so crazy.
and it's
That's
like
awesome.
raining blood.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
right. So yeah, I would say that those are my modern favorites that I've watched in the past couple of years with you.
So Nope,
Yeah, Nope,
Barbarian.
and the Evil Dead remake.
And you recently, I kind of introduced you to Ari Aster movies recently.
Yeah, those
too.
were great.
I showed you Midsummer, and I think you appreciated it more than you liked it.
Yep.
And then you were weirdly like cult burnt out by the time we got to Hereditary.
Yeah, because we watched Midsommar before we watched Hereditary, and I think it was, yeah, like you said, 2 cult movies in a row from the same director made me feel a little bit like I wish these were a little bit more different. You know, which anybody who's listening to this and has seen them, they're like, they couldn't be more different. They are super different, but those similar themes were a little bit. But yeah, you're right. Midsommar, you said it was the one you would never show me, and it was the one that, like you said, I didn't like it at all, but the artistry of it was superb. So I reckon it made me feel a way that I didn't want to feel, you know? And
What was that feeling?
and you know what? It really has nothing to do with the faith-based aspect of it. Because you mentioned, you know, anybody who hasn't clued in, I was raised religious, and I still am a, you know, go to church every Sunday kind of dude.
Yep.
However, I'm deeply religious, but not outwardly religious. I think that's the best way to say it, right? Like my faith is very inward, you know?
You have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I let really project onto the other parts of my life, other than, you know, the way that I try to treat people, right? Which is why, you know, I'm open to watching some of these things. So it wasn't Midsommar that made me, it wasn't the faith aspect of Midsommar that made me feel uncomfortable. I think it was just like, I don't know. It was like, at a certain point, I felt like Ari Aster was like, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable by drawing out these. It's like, I feel like uncomfortability and unsettling is better used as a tool. And I feel like he lived in it for the sake of living in it, right? He's like, I know this is going to make you uncomfortable, and I'm going to marinate in it, right?
I'm going to leave you there for
I'm
a
going
while.
to leave you there for a while. And I was like, at a certain point, I was just
You're
like,
get me out of here.
I was like, yeah, I get it. You know, like take it. I won't say lazy because, like I said, I realize how artistic and impressive that movie is, but I felt like enough was enough at a certain point. You know?
That's fair. It's actually the only movie in history that I wish I made.
Yeah, you've told me that.
That, like, if I could make any movie, like, if it was like, hey Dylan, what's one movie you wish you made? Midsummer is the one movie I wish I made. Like, I would be so stinking proud of that. Just be like, again, like, I know what
I have one of those. It's not a horror movie. It's
That's
kind
okay.
of a callback to action, which is a movie I didn't mention. The movie Nobody. With
Better Call Saul.
With
What's
Better
his
Call
name?
Saul. Ah, dang it, I'm spacing his name. Bob Odenkirk.
Mhm.
That's a movie I wish I had made. So, anyway, back
And
to
someday you'll have a movie that someone else wishes they made.
maybe. I hope so. But yeah, so those are the modern ones that I really appreciate. What about you? Like, if we're talking modern, and by modern I mean maybe 2000 until present. Sorry, not 2000 till present. 2010 until present.
Ooh. Okay.
Because 2000s is it has a very you showed me
The
like
Ring?
you said, The Faculty.
Oh
The
yeah,
Ring.
Faculty's 90s.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So The Ring,
I think
You
it's
know-
90, maybe 98.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those horror movies that are all green, that's all that, like, very 2000s. So I'm going to consider modern 2010 until present. What do you think are some that have stood out to you? And what would you say is the top of the mountain? We've talked about Midsummer. What else would you put in that ultimate modern horror movie?
Yeah, dude. Oh my gosh, there's so many.
I know. I'm sorry. It's hard.
But like, no, there's so many great horror movies from 2010 on, even a little bit before 2010. There's like movies like Last Shift or Starry Eyes or It Follows or The Witch or The Void or The Void is another movie I adore.
Yeah, whenever we flip through trying to decide, that's always one that you're like, hey, this needs to be an option.
Yeah.
Of what we watched tonight.
But then there's also, again, like the A24 movies are absolutely killing it. And then also, like, there's a lot of movies that, in terms of my favorites and top of the mountain, oh man. Because, like, think about it. Like, dude, even Netflix movies, they're doing some, oh my gosh, like The Ritual was really good, but then there's movies that get picked up by streaming services. There's like Creep 1 and 2 that are great. There's a movie from I think it's Romania. It's called Be My Cat. And it's so good. Yeah, dude, like the movies that I adore though, like as far as top of the mountain, like I'd probably say like contemporary horror as far as it goes, like Robert Eggers' Start, The Witch was so good. I love The Void's effects, but I also love its just vibe. I really, really, really like what Ty West is doing with X and Pearl, and then Maxine is coming next as well, his trilogy.
Is Ty West, are those his first movies, or has he made movies?
No,
Okay,
those are
okay.
not Ty West.
Okay.
No.
Because so there's two dudes in horror right now. You have Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, and they're each only like 3 movies into their career,
They're both at 3.
but they're already like horror icons in the modern age.
Yeah, even though Robert Eggers' third entry was The Northman.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure how I feel about that movie. I think it was so sick,
Yeah.
but like plot wise, a little lackluster, I think. I don't know what it was, man.
Yeah.
But I love Robert Eggers. I think The Lighthouse could be interpreted as being a little pretentious. Because
It's very like folklore driven.
it's about Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Right. And we're gonna do black and white 4x3. We're gonna do it on film. We're gonna light and expose properly for film. We're gonna make sure that we have like attire and props that work well in black and white. Like it's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
But I really liked it because it's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Like, dude,
Yeah.
come on.
It's a great
Come
great
on.
combo.
Yeah, but as far as my favorites, that's really hard. Midsummer might be number one for me. I don't know what it is. It's like it's a cult movie in the daytime. They did a really. I'm sorry, I'm reverting back to Midsummer, but Danny is such an interesting character, and weirdly a character that we've never seen in movies before. And it's mainly because like trauma is one thing, but the reason I love Midsummer so much is like it asks the question, how long are you expected to stay with someone after they experience loss when you know that relationship isn't working?
Yeah.
Because they are not gonna work out.
Yeah.
But he sticks with her even though he doesn't want to because he feels obligated. There's no other movie I can think of that explores that.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, right?
But yeah, there's this we talked about this in the last episode, how action kind of gets this bottom feeder type, connotation with some film snobs. And I think horror is the same way. There's so many horror movies that have been made so cheaply, right? And it's, everyone just assumes that a horror movie is going to follow the Friday the 13th model, where it's teenagers acting promiscuous and then getting slaughtered for it. But there's a lot of horror filmmakers that are, like you said, introducing these themes of trauma and of relationships. They're building, Hereditary is a movie about a family that goes through loss, and then there's a horror element injected into it, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
There's filmmakers that are writing movies and then encasing them within horror. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, again, contemporary, right? Like we saw Smile, which is sort of a curse movie. If I'm not allowed to go prior to 2010, just because like my favorite curse movie is The Ring. Obviously, It's so good. Smile was a great curse movie. There's a really good plot happening there. There's movies like, I don't know, man. Did you ever? I haven't shown you the Babadook yet, right? Mm-mm. Babadook is super great.
Are there any from that pre-2010 that you want to mention? Because I kind of limited you, but are there any?
Oh, there's tons.
Yeah, The Ring, Babadook, anything else?
Well, no, Babadook is new.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
Not new. It's like, I think it was 20. It might have been 2016 or 17. Yeah, dude. Like if you get into late 90s, early 2000s, like it goes crazy. Like obviously we had Scream, we had The Faculty, Idle Hands, Urban Legend. We had the first 3 Final Destination movies were pretty solid. I'm not a big fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer, but I know people love that. But then you had The Ring, you had The Grudge, right? And then, yeah, there's just like a lot of remakes coming from Japan and Korea, and that's really good, especially when once in a while America knocks it out of the park. The US Ring is way better. It's
really?
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I like that.
And I
one.
didn't like it at the time I saw it because I thought it was sort of like, I thought it was being washed over by everything. I was like, oh, it's another one of these movies. And I watch it now and I'm just, man, it's so good.
It's slick. It's a cool one.
Yeah. So like, and obviously you mentioned Jordan Peele. I think Get Out is really great. I showed you The Descent recently. There's still foreign movies that I really like. A lot of people are a fan of Train to Busan, which is getting a US remake.
Yeah.
Dude, I love foreign films. So, you get into movies like, I just saw this one fairly recently called Speak No Evil that was so good. And then there's movies like Martyrs that's really good, and then there's Let the Right One In that's really good.
So I'm remembering now that I wanted to ask you another like question, like a more general one, right? So you have like these iconic horror villains, right? Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, those guys, right? Who else would you place in that, like, not Mount Rushmore because there's only 4 heads, right? Let's say you could carve as many heads into the mountain as you wanted. Who are those like iconic horror villains, or iconic horror movies, right? That have really like like defined the genre and have been like influential and really important to the genre of horror.
Okay, so not necessarily like Who's Coming to My Dinner Table, but almost like the important ones.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's those stupid posters you see where it's all the horror icons at like the Last Supper.
Yeah.
You know, and they're eating a zombie or something.
Yeah.
And you got like, you know, the core four. You know, you have like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and then Chucky, and then there's Pennywise, and then there's all these things. However, like, I mean, I gotta give them credit because those movies do push the genre forward. Friday the 13th, again, being like an exploitation movie, was important. People wanted to go see the new Jason installment. You know, there's something fun about watching kids be promiscuous and then get slaughtered by a killer. You know, these characters are just insufferable, and you're like, what, you know, what's Jason gonna do this time? Oh, he's gonna zip up their sleeping bag and slam them against a tree. Got it.
So maybe like less the villains, but like what are some of the movies in the horror genre that are like important, like pillars of the horror genre? I know of a couple that I would maybe just to get the ball rolling, I can throw a couple at you and you can tell me.
Yeah, because me personally, I'm gonna go back to the Platinum era.
Okay.
Right?
What?
Because we talked a little bit about Universal back in the day, but if you go back and you watch some of those early Universal films, I'm talking about like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, yeah, with Lon Chaney Jr., and then you watch like the Bela Lugosi Dracula. That's the U.S. There is like a one from Mexico that's considered to be the better movie, but Bela Lugosi is Dracula. You know, and then Boris Karloff, you get into like Frankenstein and stuff like that, and then you get into Bride of Frankenstein. The Universal films were great, but then they were transcended with the Hammer films, right? Because that's when you saw Christopher Lee as Dracula and all these things, right? So it's like those early films really like set the stage for what was to come. You know, I remember there's this scene in Frankenstein where the school gets broken into and like Igor's gonna steal a brain, and then he accidentally steals the brain of a maniac, like a serial killer, right? But as he's breaking into this big classroom, you see that only his shadow on the wall, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's weirdly like eerie.
Yeah.
And those movies were very successful. You know, like people wanted to go see monster movies. You know, and then like I said, you get into the Hammer films, and then after that you get into there was an era where there was sort of like satanic panic. You know, you kind of get into like the 60s with like Rosemary's Baby and with films like that. You know, you eventually get to The Exorcist. But then overseas we're getting more monster movies like Godzilla and Mothra and all these things, you know.
I'm learning a lot just talking to you. So
no,
I'm
talking nonsense. So who is?
So there are two movies that I know are like, they're very influential over the genre of horror, right? And maybe if I feed them to you, there's others that'll come to mind. I want to talk about Alien for a second.
Oh yeah, dude, the xenomorph, dude. Alien. Whew. Can't believe we didn't talk about that. 1979. Dude.
And I know that's one of your favorites ever, so I want to make sure we highlight it, right?
Not in my top 5, but it might be like number 6.
Yeah. And was that one of, I know it probably wasn't, but like cosmic horror, right? Horror that happens in, you know, on the poster, in space, no one can hear you scream, right? Like that's a very like influential time, or at least movie, where it's like, oh, horror can happen anywhere, and if we put it in different, you know, places.
Well, you put it somewhere that's more isolating.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you're on Earth, you think I always have somewhere to run. In space, you can't go anywhere. No. You're stuck.
Yeah.
You know, and then you accidentally bring a face hugger on board, and then the rest is history.
You're in trouble. So there's that one, and then there's the Blair Witch Project.
So hold on, let's go back to Alien.
Okay.
I want to focus on Alien for a second.
Okay.
I want everyone listening to do me a favor. Go watch Alien. Okay? And don't worry, we're not going to skip over the icons. There's people going to be like, why didn't they mention Jaws, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Go watch Alien. Again, this is a film from 1979, okay? Tell me it is not one of the most beautiful movies cinematically you've ever seen. Dude, when you watch Alien, you're like, did this movie come out in 99? It looks 20 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And I know we need to go through it. Like, I need to sit down with you and watch it.
Yeah.
But the cinematography, the lighting, the clarity, it's weird.
It's wild.
It's weird to watch. And I'm not just talking about the fact that they've restored the negatives. The movie's beautiful,
It
dude.
looks really crisp.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And yeah, so you brought up Blair Witch Project.
Well, let me ask a question before we do that one, right? So cosmic horror in space. Any others from that genre that need to be mentioned?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let me hear 2 or 3.
I mean,
4.
Again, a movie doesn't have to be set in space to be cosmic horror, though.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, Predator is a cosmic horror movie.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But then you get into movies that take place on Earth, like Color Out of Space with Nicolas Cage. That's a cosmic horror movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So cosmic horror is like its own thing. And then you get into movies like, Event Horizon, and you get into, I mentioned The Void earlier. The Void is cosmic horror, right? Because because while it's not space, The Void focuses on a different dimension.
Yeah.
So it's very weird,
Yeah.
And man, Alien was a banger though. Like,
Yeah.
and there's it's so funny that you bring up Alien, because that really is a marriage topic, right? Because Aliens is a action movie.
Yeah.
The sequel is an action film.
Yeah.
It's a very much Terminator situation.
Uh-huh.
Terminator 1 it's a horror film at its core, right?
Yeah.
Like, it really is.
Yeah.
Terminator
it's
2
a
is
killer
an action.
stalking people. Yeah.
Yeah, and killing people.
Yeah. And then Terminator 2 turns into action, and Aliens does the same thing.
It does the exact same thing,
James Cameron did Aliens too, right? He did the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew that.
Well, Ridley Scott did the first one.
Yeah, and then James
Cameron did the second
Yeah,
one.
I couldn't remember Linda Hamilton properly, but I need to make sure I know James.
Do you remember
Cameron.
Sigourney Weaver? Do you remember Ghostbusters? Also, I consider Ghostbusters kind of a horror movie.
It's definitely got some scenes in it where you're like, yeah, it's influenced for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's stellar. And obviously we can't escape this episode without mentioning, some of the older stuff too. Like, someone's going to get mad if we don't mention like George A. Romero. So like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn, Day, those were super important movies as well.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you would come with when I mentioned some of it, like an icon of the zombie genre of horror, right? Like,
yeah, and
Night of the Living Dead is that,
It's super great. Yeah, I kind of dated someone who that was her favorite movie of all time, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
But then
it's a slick one.
he did The Crazies as well, which is so stinking good.
And yeah, then I wanted to say Blair Witch Project, right? Because you told me about when it came out and your experience with it. It's a found footage film, which is also another genre of horror that's been pretty successful, right? What was it like? When Blair Witch Project came out? You told me you thought it was real, right?
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Because there was really nothing like it. It wasn't the first found footage film. However, it created a craze. The actors weren't doing interviews, and there was a website that talked about the disappearances of these kids. And it's like you hadn't really seen a movie that was like claiming, hey, we found this footage and put it together and this is what we got.
Yeah.
So, I was 8 when the original came out, and I was very believing of it. Not to mention the actors were being legitimately messed with in the woods. So it's pretty believable, but I mean, why wouldn't it be? You don't see a witch in that movie.
Yeah.
You don't ever see the Blair Witch. It's just like these kids are getting messed with, and then something real weird happens at the end. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. We should watch it.
We'll watch it.
Okay. And I think that like the stuff that you can't see is almost more scary than the stuff you can sometimes, right? Like taking it back to Michael Myers in the original Halloween, you said there's not that much, usually it's like Michael jumping up on the dude, and then later you see the aftermath of it, right? You don't actually see the kills in certain instances, right? It's almost like, and like you said, you mentioned all of the patients from the hospital wandering in the field being really unsettling.
It still scares me.
The most unsettling part of that movie to me is when Jamie Lee Curtis looks out the window and he's just standing there, right? In the corner next to the house, right? It's like almost the stuff that you don't see is it's your imagination that scares you the most.
Well, the
right?
imagination is scarier than reality could ever be.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
It's true. The things that we conjure up in our minds are way worse than anything that could actually happen. Now, I understand freak accidents happen. People get sucked into boat rotors and stuff.
Yeesh.
Sorry. But only in your imagination is someone out to get you.
Yeah.
Because in reality, while that does happen, it happens with a motive. And the ones that don't have the motive are called serial killers, and they're actually kind of rare.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason someone's stalking you is because you just broke up with them. Right? Michael Myers in Halloween is stalking people. The reason that he's stalking Jamie Lee Curtis and her friends is simply because she came up to the door of the Myers house and he saw her, and that's the one he went after.
Yeah.
There's no other reason.
Yeah.
Right? So the imagination is way worse than anything we could ever think of, or anything that could actually happen, you know? And
I love it. That's one thing I'm always hoping, you know, obviously you watch horror movies for the sometimes for the big kills, and you're like, oh man, how are they going to kill this dude? And is it going to be spectacular? But I'm always really like pleasantly surprised not surprised, but I'm always hoping, I'm like, oh man, I hope they do an off-screen thing so it can be left up to our imagination, and that can make us feel more unsettled than the actual kill, you know? It's always kind of fun when that happens.
yeah, like prime example of that. Sorry, just sticking with the Halloween thing because you brought it up. When Halloween 2018 came out, honest, I saw that movie probably 10 times in theaters. Yeah.
Yeah.
But every single showing, there's a scene in that movie. It's a long tracking shot where Michael goes and he gets a hammer and he kills a woman off screen, you know, and then he stabs a woman through the throat. But there's a part where he's killed the woman in the house and he's walking through the house and there's a baby crying. And he walks by the crib and he stops for a sec and everyone in the theater gasps because they're like, is he going to harm a baby? And he doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's like their imagination.
Yeah.
They're like, is Michael gonna harm an infant? Like a little baby?
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Yeah. But it was that moment of, is he?
Are they taking it there?
That made everyone really scared.
Yeah. But
That's so cool.
But he doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone in the theater gasped, right? Because that's their imagination. That's what they are imagining is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that really, like, just to bring it full circle, when it comes to why I love horror so much and why I think horror is so great is because it just like, it's like stand-up comedy. The reason stand-up comedy is so good to a lot of people is because it's a bunch of people saying things that we're too afraid to say.
Yeah.
Horror is showcasing things that people imagine but never talk about.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
You know,
That's a good way to say it.
Not like someone's fantasizing about harming someone else, but they're fantasizing about dark things because
your mind goes there.
we're scared.
Yeah.
You know, and someone takes it and makes entertainment out of it. And in a way, it kind of, while some people hate horror because it makes them afraid, I also think it takes power away from fear a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
It gives fear a little less power because we can enjoy it at that point.
Yeah.
Because fear really consumes our lives, especially, you know, opportunities, relationships, whatever, housing, whatever you're, you know, and we're feeling it in the way of like anxiety and tension and dread. But if you can make entertainment out of one of the most uncomfortable feelings and enjoy it, you're kind of helping it lose its power a little bit.
Yeah.
I've become less scared throughout my life because I've fallen in love with horror, I think, you know, and I'm not as afraid of the world as I used to be. And you'd think it would have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Where it would give me irrational fears.
Yeah, you would be looking for the darkness in your life because you're exposing yourself to it.
No, it normalizes fear because fear is normal. And like you realize like if you're watching it, you're not avoiding it. And if you're not avoiding it, you just live your life, right?
Interesting.
I mean, like, I really don't know anyone that watches horror and is like, I'm afraid to leave my house now. You'll say that.
Yeah.
You know, like we'll watch I don't know, you know, we get like we'll watch Jaws, also one of the goats. So good.
And then the next time you're next to an ocean, you're like, nope.
Or you just say it in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm never going swimming in the ocean again. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Because the probability of you getting bitten by a shark is so rare. You know how many people go in the ocean every day?
Yeah.
Like it's
So many.
You're not going to get bitten by a shark. You're just not. I'm sorry. Unless you're part of that weird percentage of outliers that get bitten by sharks.
Yeah.
But it takes power away from fear, I think. And the world can be a scary place, but our minds are even scarier. And our minds can like consume our ability to move forward. And if we can help that lose its power and enjoy fear in a safe setting, I think it's healthy.
Interesting, man. That's a good way of thinking about it. And yeah, I'm glad that you have that outlet that you enjoy so much, you know. In the same way that action empowers me to be, you know, try to be stronger, try to be, you know, handsomer, try to dress a little, you know, like the way that it like makes me want to do those things. I'm glad that horror movies have given that power to you in that way. It's pretty interesting how that works, huh?
And it's just fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun. And it's really hard to do an episode on a topic like this because like I sort of black out and I'm just like, this movie. And then there's going to be people that are going to be like, Dylan, why didn't you mention this? Why didn't you mention this? And it's like, because we can't. Like, there's just not enough time in the world. But I promise you, if you go look on my shelf, and Alek can attest to this, I have some weird ones like Jackhammer Massacre or Motorhome Massacre.
Yeah, we talked about this in the collecting episode where you said you'll see a DVD. There's been times where it's like $1.50 for this DVD, and it's like clearly based on the cover, it's the worst. You know, don't judge a DVD by its cover, but sometimes you do. You like clearly by the DVD, you're like, "There's no way this movie is good," but I'm gonna grab it anyway, just because who knows?
Well, like that one time we were in Oregon, and
the Bargain Mart over there.
Yeah, it burned down sadly.
Yeeks.
But we were in there, and we were at this place that had like over 8,000 movies or whatever, and you found this one and you brought it to me. You're like, Dylan, what about Motorhome Massacre? And I was like, dude, I'm buying that. That looks awesome. And it was cool. It was like a early Lionsgate movie because Lionsgate used to press everything they could. But I don't know. It's just like, it's fun, man. It's fun. And it's not just about elevated horror. It's not about horror that's going to make you ponder or question.
Yeah.
No, because you're not always supposed to ponder something. Just because something makes you introspective does not mean that that's the only kind of art.
Yeah.
Right?
It's exactly what we talked about in the action episode. It's sometimes entertainment is supposed to entertain you, and that's all it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's like,
and you should feel happy about those things. You should like kind of revel in them, you know?
Yeah, you don't walk away from like Hobo with a Shotgun with a message.
Yeah.
But it's fun, man.
Yeah, it's just fun.
You know? So not closing this out in the traditional manner. What do you have to say about this podcast?
I don't know. I think that it's just fun. That's the ultimate like kind of you know, that's the ultimate kind of
like Joe Dirt. Like Joe Dirt's parents. It just does.
It's you know, that's like kind of a good wrapping up point for at least the first season of this you know, of this podcast. We talked about it last time. We said, "Hey, we picked an unconventional, you know, format for this. We didn't choose a niche, and it's because we wanted to make sure we had as much fun as possible doing this. And that might have hurt our viewership, you know, because of it, because we didn't choose a niche, but, you know, it's just fun. This has just been fun, this season of our podcast. And just talking about the things that we like and talking about the things that entertain us and talking about some of the fun times we've had and together or before we met each other. It's just been a lot of fun. And, again, appreciate everybody who's listened and, keep engaging with us. And at some point, maybe we'll sit down and be able to do some more of these again. But in the meantime, it's just been fun.
Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun from the funny stories. I feel like we might have to eventually make like a Simpsons style clips episode where like you and I sit down and we're like, on episode 2, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Take it away, and it's like, it shows it. But no, lots of funny stories, some personal dives into our lives, everything from us talking about the losses we've experienced to, Alek thinking that fandom and phantom were the same word to me, making a little girl go blind with a Super Soaker 2000 to now. It's just a lot. And extremely refreshing. Like, very,
very refreshing.
Very refreshing. So,
but yeah, we want to thank everybody who's listened. We want to thank anybody who discovers us way after this comes out. We appreciate
we want to thank our sponsors.
Want to thank our sponsors.
Our many sponsors.
But yeah, we've had a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a hope that it'll blow up so we can come back and do more. But if it doesn't, that's okay. We just had a good time. So appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate all of our fans.
We appreciate our fandom. We appreciate our phantom. Our phantom menace.
Well, we're going to sign off for season 1, episode 12 of the Very Refreshing Podcast. My name is Alek Jetzel.
And I'm Dylan Hamer, and this has been the most refreshing thing I've ever experienced.
Thank you for checking out the Very Refreshing Podcast. Subscribe for more content just like this.